The first time that Konami made a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, they didn't know who the characters were. That's why in Japan the game was called Gekikami Ninja Den. But in the time since then, the Turtles have started airing on Japanese television, and while they didn't descend into Turtle Mania like the rest of the world, it was popular. Since it was airing in Japan under its English title, it was only natural for the second game to use that title as well. Which is why this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. That said, the arcade game was also just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so really it's the Japanese release that's the accurate one here. I have a bit of a confession to make. I'm not that fond of Konami's arcade beat-em-ups. They tended toward the simple side, and were even more transparently geared towards quarter extraction than other beat-em-ups were. But the Turtles were the best of a bad bunch, and it was difficult to see how such an enormous and lively game could be brought to the Famicom. But somehow Konami did it. In fact, in some ways, this version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the better version. At the very least, they've toned down some of the worst quarter-munching aspects of the arcade game, and at the same time extended the game by adding in several new levels and bosses. The action came through almost entirely intact, and so did a shocking amount of the animation and graphics. Yeah, you've lost the color depth and the animation isn't anywhere near as smooth, but they still have things like the random skateboarder in Stage 2. When you start the game, you have your choice of any of the 4 turtles, but there's really no effective difference between any of them. They all have the same moves, they all do the same damage. The most you get is the hitbox on some of their sprites is a little bit larger, meaning that Raphael has to be closer to enemies to strike them. By the game's count, there's 7 stages, but a few of them are broken up into big chunks. The Snowy Manhattan stage and the Japanese themed stages are new for the console version. As you play, the B button attacks and the A button jumps. If you jump and then attack, you do a jump kick, and if you hit both buttons at the same time, you jump into the air and swing your weapon. Almost every enemy in the game is one of the foot soldiers, but there's a lot of variation in them by what weapon they hold, and they're all color-coded so that you know what they can do. It's a great way to instantly convey to players what kind of threat they're dealing with. It takes 2 regular attacks to defeat a foot soldier, but only 1 hit from one of your jumping attacks. So you'll almost always want to use a jumping attack, except in cases where there's a significant chance that the enemy will retaliate to it. One of the fun things about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is that there's a lot of weird things packed into the game that are only used a handful of times and then never again. Like the giant crushing balls that you have to dodge, or the manholes that you can fall down. The game is packed with distinctive animations, too. Yeah, it hurts to see your turtle get charred, but the fact that they have that there at all is neat. And since Konami was able to make this game after the cartoon, almost all of the bosses and enemies that you'll face are straight from that. It's no longer just a handful of comic book references. The cartoon character designs are especially referenced in the bosses, though not the weird samurai ghost guy that Konami must have had left over from some other game. One useful thing to be aware of is that you can knock projectiles out of the air with the regular attack. It's a vital technique if you're going to complete the game on 3 lives and 3 continues. Of course, you could cheat by entering this code, and that gives you 10 lives plus a stage select. And obviously I used it if you've been paying attention to the life count. This is a surprisingly long game, and I don't have enough recording time to play through stages to get back to the boss that gave me the game over. Unfortunately at this point, there isn't a lot more to say about this one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is about as simple as beat-em-ups can get. The only thing that you can pick up in the game is the pizza that fully restores your health. Anything else you can interact with is an enemy or something that you launch into an enemy by striking it. Of course, this simplicity isn't a bad thing. It's what lets the game play so fast and fluidly on a Famicom. That and some actually good use of flickering, since it only affects parts of the characters and you can always see what they're doing. It's also what lets you play 2 players through the whole game. In Japan, the game did pretty well, though it wasn't the monster hit that it was in the US. Japanese players don't seem to look back on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as fondly as US players, though. Most of them seem to think that the game was just too easy. and I will point out that the difficulty was significantly ramped up for the US version. As for my own opinion, well, I enjoy playing this version more than the original arcade game, and I think the Famicom version's better than the US version. Yeah, the gameplay isn't especially deep, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is one of the bigger spectacles on the Famicom, and I think that counts for quite a bit.